On the night of June 7th, 2021, a man called 911 from a 1,700-acre hunting estate in rural South Carolina. He was wailing, screaming into the phone that his wife and son were dead, that he had found their bodies at the dog kennels behind the property. His name was Alex Murdaugh, and within minutes the Colleton County Sheriff's Office and the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division descended on the property known as a Moselle. What they found was a scene of extraordinary violence. Paul Murdaugh, 22 years old, shot twice at close range with a shotgun. His mother, Maggie Murdaugh, 52 years old, shot 5 times with a .300 blackout rifle. Both bodies lay near the dog kennels on the sprawling family estate. The grieving husband and father told investigators he had been away visiting his ailing mother that evening. He said he returned home around 10 o'clock and discovered the carnage. He said he had no idea who could have done this. He was lying about almost everything. This is the story of Alex Murdaugh, a man born into a dynasty of power that stretched back 100 years across the South Carolina Lowcountry. A man who stole millions from his own clients, who destroyed everyone who trusted him, and who on one June evening killed the 2 people closest to him in the world to keep his empire of lies from collapsing. To understand what happened at a Moselle, you first have to understand the name Murdaugh. In South Carolina's Lowcountry, that name did not just carry weight. It was the weight. For nearly a century, 3 consecutive generations of men named Randolph Murdaugh served as the elected solicitor for the state's 14th Judicial Circuit. That circuit covers 5 counties: Allendale, Beaufort, Colleton, Hampton, and Jasper. Locals did not call it the 14th Circuit. They called it Murdaugh Country. Randolph Murdaugh Sr. was elected solicitor in 1920 and served until his death in 1940. His son Randolph Murdaugh Jr. took over and served from 1940 until his retirement in 1986. And then Randolph Murdaugh III was elected in 1987 and served through 2005. 86 consecutive years. 3 generations. 1 family controlling who got prosecuted and who did not across 5 counties of rural South Carolina. The family also built a powerful personal injury law firm in the small town of Hampton. The firm was called Peters Murdaugh Parker Elthroth and Dietrich, known locally as PMPD. Through that firm, the Murdaugh name touched nearly every institution in the region: law enforcement, the judiciary, local politics, banking. If you lived in the Lowcountry, the Murdaugh family was woven into the fabric of your daily life, whether you knew it or not. Alex Murdaugh was the 4th generation. He was a partner at PMPD handling lucrative personal injury cases. He married Margaret Brandstetter. Everyone called her Maggie. They had 2 sons. The eldest was Richard Alexander Jr., known as Buster. The youngest was Paul Terry Murdaugh, born in 1999. From the outside, the family appeared to be exactly what the Lowcountry expected them to be: wealthy, connected, untouchable. But behind the oak trees and the Spanish moss, something was rotting from the inside out. Alex Murdaugh had developed a devastating opioid addiction. At his worst, he consumed up to 60 oxycodone pills per day. And to feed that addiction and maintain his lifestyle, he had been stealing from his own clients for years. Vulnerable people. People who had come to him after car accidents and workplace injuries and wrongful deaths. People who trusted the Murdaugh name. He set up a fake bank account at Bank of America under the name Richard A. Murdaugh Sole Prop DBA Forge. The name was designed to mimic a legitimate settlement company called Forge Consulting. When settlement checks arrived, he would redirect them into his fake account. Over nearly a decade, he stole between $8.5 and $10 million, and no one caught it, until the walls started closing in. Before the murders, there was the boat crash. And before the boat crash, there was a pattern of the Murdaugh family operating as though the rules did not apply to them. On the night of February 24th, 2019, Paul Murdaugh was behind the wheel of a boat near Archers Creek heading toward Parris Island. It was approximately 2:17 in the morning. Paul was 19 years old. His blood alcohol level was later measured at more than 0.28. That is more than 3 times the legal limit. 6 young people were aboard. Paul was driving recklessly. Witnesses on the boat said he was aggressive and erratic. He slammed the vessel into a bridge piling at high speed. The impact was catastrophic. Passengers were thrown from the boat. 2 were seriously injured. And 19-year-old Mallory Beach was hurled into the dark water and disappeared. Her body was not recovered for 8 days. It was found 5 miles downriver. In the aftermath of the crash, the Murdaugh family machine kicked into gear. There were reports that Alex Murdaugh arrived at the hospital and attempted to redirect blame away from Paul and onto another passenger named Connor Cook. Alex allegedly told injured passengers not to say anything. The family's influence loomed over the investigation from the very beginning. Paul was eventually charged with 3 felony counts: boating under the influence causing death and 2 counts of boating under the influence causing great bodily injury. He pleaded not guilty and was released on a $50,000 personal recognizance bond. The case dragged on for over 2 years. And in the Lowcountry, the Murdaugh name began to carry a different kind of weight. Not reverence, resentment. The Beach family filed a wrongful death lawsuit. That lawsuit threatened to crack open the Murdaugh finances. Depositions would require Alex to disclose his assets, his accounts, his income. Every dollar would be scrutinized. For a man who had been stealing millions from his own clients, this was an existential threat. The boat crash did not just kill Mallory Beach. It set in motion the chain of events that would eventually lead to the kennels at Moselle. On the morning of June 7, 2021, the chief financial officer at PMPD confronted Alex Murdaugh about $792,000 in missing funds. The discrepancy had been discovered while Murdaugh's personal secretary was on vacation. An accounts payable employee found deposits going to a suspicious account bearing the name Forge. This was the moment the financial house of cards began its final collapse. Alex Murdaugh knew that a full audit would follow. He knew the fake Forge account would be traced back to him. He knew the years of theft would be exposed. And he knew that the wrongful death lawsuit from the Beach family would open his books even further. Everything was converging at once. That evening, Maggie Murdaugh arrived at the Moselle property. Investigators later determined she had been lured there by Alex. She had been staying at the family's beach house at Edisto and was not planning to visit Moselle that night. Alex wanted her there. At approximately 8:44 p.m., Paul Murdaugh recorded a Snapchat video at the dog kennels. He was filming one of the family dogs. The video was only 50 seconds long, but it captured something that would become the single most important piece of evidence in the entire case. 3 voices were clearly audible on that recording: Paul, Maggie, and Alex. This mattered because Alex Murdaugh told investigators repeatedly and emphatically that he was not at the kennels that evening. He said he had been at the main house, possibly napping, and then he drove to visit his ailing mother at her home in nearby Almeda. He said he returned around 10 p.m. and found the bodies. But the Snapchat video placed him at the exact location of the murders just minutes before they occurred. Between approximately 8:49 p.m. and 9 p.m., Paul Murdaugh was shot twice with a shotgun. Maggie Murdaugh was shot 5 times with a .300 blackout rifle. Both were killed near the dog kennels on the Moselle property. After the killing, cell phone data from Alex Murdaugh's phone showed a period of inactivity followed by a burst of movement. Step counter data indicated rapid physical activity consistent with someone moving quickly around the property. At 10:07 p.m., Alex Murdaugh dialed 911. The operator heard a man wailing on the other end of the line. He said he had just returned home and found his wife and son dead. 3 days later, on June 10, Randolph Murdaugh III died of natural causes at age 81. Alex's father, the former solicitor, the patriarch of the Dynasty. Alex attended the funeral while under investigation for the murder of his own wife and child. For nearly 3 months after the murders, Alex Murdaugh played the role of the grieving father. He appeared in public. He spoke to the press. He expressed anguish over the loss of Maggie and Paul. He said he wanted justice. But behind the scenes, everything was falling apart. On September 3, 2021, Alex Murdaugh resigned from PMPD. The firm had discovered the scope of his financial theft and publicly announced his departure. They said he had violated firm standards and policies. The next day, something even more bizarre happened. Alex Murdaugh was shot in the head on Old Salkehatchie Road. He told police he had pulled over to change a flat tire when a passing truck fired at him. He survived with what appeared to be a superficial wound. 2 days later, his attorneys announced he was entering rehab for opioid addiction. But within a week, the truth emerged. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division revealed that the roadside shooting was staged. Murdaugh had hired a man named Curtis Edward Smith to shoot him in the head. Smith was a former client, a distant cousin, and the same man Murdaugh had been writing checks to for years to feed his drug supply. The plan was for Smith to kill Murdaugh so that his surviving son Buster could collect approximately $10 million in life insurance proceeds. Smith fired one shot, but it only grazed Murdaugh's skull. The scheme was almost laughably incompetent. A man who had deceived everyone around him for a decade could not even stage his own death convincingly. On September 16, Murdaugh surrendered to authorities and was charged with insurance fraud and conspiracy. Curtis Edward Smith was charged with assisted suicide and assault, among other counts. And then the indictments started coming, one after another after another. October 2021 brought charges related to the theft of the glorious Satterfield insurance settlement. Satterfield had been the Murdaugh family's housekeeper and nanny for over 20 years. She died in 2018 after allegedly tripping over the family dogs and falling down the front steps. Alex told her sons he would help them get a settlement. He secretly orchestrated a $4.3 million insurance payout through his college friend and attorney Corey Fleming. Then he stole every cent of it. The Satterfield family received nothing. More indictments followed through 2022. The full scope of the financial fraud was staggering. Approximately 100 criminal charges in total. Victims included some of the most vulnerable people in the Lowcountry. People who had trusted the Murdaugh name with their settlements and their futures. The financial crimes were not opportunistic. They were systematic, calculated, and breathtakingly cruel. Alex Murdaugh did not steal from strangers. He stole from people who came to him at the worst moments of their lives. A family whose child was brain damaged in an accident. A man paralyzed in a workplace injury. The sons of his own housekeeper after she died in his home. He looked these people in the eyes. He promised to help them. And then he took everything. The fake Forge account was the primary mechanism. Murdaugh opened it in 2015 at Bank of America under a name carefully designed to look like the legitimate settlement firm Forge Consulting. When clients were owed money from settlements or judgments, Murdaugh would redirect the funds into this account. The clients never knew. They trusted their lawyer. They trusted the Murdaugh name. Over 8 years, Murdaugh wrote at least 437 checks to Curtis Edward Smith, totaling approximately $2.4 million. Individual checks were kept under $10,000 to avoid triggering federal bank reporting thresholds. This was not carelessness. This was structured financial crime. He had co-conspirators. His college friend Corey Fleming helped orchestrate the Satterfield scheme. Fleming was later sentenced to 20 years in state prison and 46 months in federal prison. Russell Lafitte, the former CEO of Palmetto State Bank, facilitated multiple fraudulent transactions. He was convicted at federal trial and sentenced to prison. He later pleaded guilty to state charges as well. The total amount stolen was estimated between $8.5 and $10 million. And every dollar came from someone who had nowhere else to turn. Someone who believed the legal system was there to protect them. Someone who believed a lawyer with the last name Murdaugh would never betray their trust. On January 23, 2023, the murder trial of Alex Murdaugh began at the Colleton County Courthouse in Walterboro, South Carolina. Judge Clifton Newman presided. The lead prosecutor was Creighton Waters from the South Carolina Attorney General's office. The defense was led by Dick Harpootlian, a prominent South Carolina state senator and one of the most well-known trial lawyers in the state. His co-counsel was Jim Griffin. The trial lasted 6 weeks. More than 75 witnesses took the stand, and the case hinged on one question. Was Alex Murdaugh at the kennels on the night of the murders, or was he not? The prosecution's case was built on layers. The kennel video was the cornerstone. That 50-second Snapchat recording from Paul's phone placed Alex at the exact scene of the killings just minutes before they occurred. Multiple family members and friends listened to the audio and identified Alex's voice without hesitation. Cell phone data reinforced the timeline. Alex's phone went inactive during the estimated window of the murders, then showed a burst of activity and rapid movement afterward. The prosecution argued motive. On the very day of the murders, Murdaugh had been confronted about missing funds at his law firm. The Beach family lawsuit was closing in. Years of financial fraud were about to be exposed. Killing Maggie and Paul would generate sympathy. It would delay scrutiny. It would create a distraction from the financial investigation bearing down on him. The defense countered that there was no direct physical evidence linking Murdaugh to the shootings. No blood, no DNA, no gunshot residue on his clothing. Harpootlian argued that whoever killed Paul with a shotgun at close range would have been covered in blood from head to foot. Yet SLED tested 74 cuttings from Murdaugh's t-shirt and found no human blood. The defense challenged the timeline and the reliability of the digital evidence. Then on February 23, 2023, Alex Murdaugh took the stand in his own defense. He denied killing his wife and son, but he admitted something devastating. For the first time, he acknowledged that he had lied to investigators about being at the kennels. He admitted his voice was on the Snapchat video. When asked why he lied, he blamed paranoid thinking caused by his opioid addiction. Prosecutor Creighton Waters delivered a devastating cross-examination. He methodically cataloged every lie Murdaugh had told. To investigators, to his law partners, to his clients, to his family, to the court. Waters laid bare a pattern of deception so deep and so constant that Murdaugh's entire life had been built on falsehood. His most famous line from the trial became a defining moment. Not a single person close to him had not been lied to by this man. On March 2, 2023, the jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. They returned guilty verdicts on all counts. 2 counts of murder. 2 counts of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. The next morning, Judge Clifton Newman sentenced Alex Murdaugh to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Newman's remarks were extraordinary. He told Murdaugh that his slain wife and son must come and visit him whenever he tries to sleep. He described how heartbreaking it was to see a lawyer he had encountered many times in court go from grieving father to convicted murderer. And then Newman said something that cut to the core of who Alex Murdaugh really was. It might not have been you. It might have been the monster you become when you take 20 or 40 or 60 opioid pills. The sentencing did not end the story. In November 2023, Murdaugh received an additional 27 years in state prison for financial crimes. He later received a concurrent 40-year federal sentence after pleading guilty to conspiracy and fraud and money laundering. He was ordered to pay more than $8.7 million in restitution to his victims. But the case took yet another turn. In September 2023, Murdaugh's defense team filed a motion for a new trial. They alleged that the Colleton County Clerk of Court, Rebecca Hill, had tampered with the jury. The defense claimed Hill told jurors not to be fooled by the defense team's arguments, that she pressured jurors to reach a quick guilty verdict, that she was motivated by celebrity because she had a book deal related to the trial. In January 2024, retired South Carolina Supreme Court Chief Justice Jean Toll heard the motion and denied it. She found that Hill may have been attracted by the siren call of celebrity, but ruled that her actions did not change the outcome of the trial. In December 2025, Becky Hill pleaded guilty to perjury and obstruction of justice and misconduct in office. The South Carolina Supreme Court agreed to hear Murdaugh's appeal, and in February 2026 oral arguments were presented. As of today, the court has not issued its ruling. If the convictions are upheld, Alex Murdaugh will spend the rest of his life in prison. If the court orders a new trial, the entire case will be relitigated from the beginning. The victims of this case extend far beyond Maggie and Paul. Mallory Beach was 19 years old when she was killed in the boat crash that Paul caused. Gloria Satterfield served the Murdaugh family for over 20 years, and her sons were robbed of every dollar meant to honor her death. Stephen Smith was a 19-year-old nursing student found dead on a Hampton County road in 2015. His case was reopened because of information uncovered during the Murdaugh investigation. It remains unsolved. Dozens of clients across the Lowcountry lost their settlements to a man they trusted. The Murdaugh dynasty lasted nearly a century. It was built on power and influence and the presumption that the family name placed its members above the law. Alex Murdaugh proved that presumption correct for far too long. And in the end, the dynasty did not fall because the system worked. It fell because one man's greed and violence became too enormous to hide, even in Murdaugh country. If this case stayed with you, we did our job. Subscribe for more stories like this one. And leave a comment below. Do you think the Murdaugh dynasty enabled Alex's crimes? Or was he simply a predator who would have destroyed people regardless of his last name? We read every comment. We will see you in the next one.